Welcome back everybody to Kerbal Space Program Interstellar Quest, a series in which we are trying to get to the promised worlds of KSP2 by a whole bunch of mods in KSP1 and while paying tribute to legends like Scott Manley. And to kick things off, we are looking at a new launch vehicle. This is my first 3.75 meter launch vehicle. We're calling it a Hyperion, and the Hyperion, whoa, that's a lot of noise. Apart from making a lot of noise, is a very capable lifter. It was designed for 80 tons lift capability, but in a later episode I was able to launch 95 tons on it, and I still had fuel to spare. Yeah, this is going to be a workhorse. It's an expensive workhorse, but nevertheless. The last episode focused much on the MUN, and it focused on the Zephyrus space shuttle, bringing a unique crew to the MUN. And I hope you all enjoyed that episode, because I sure did. I think that was one of the most epic missions I've ever flown. But it's time that we learn why did we send these people to the MUN. And it has everything to do with what is behind the payload veering of this Hyperion rocket. Because we've entered phase 2 of our roadmap, and for those of you who remember the roadmap episode, phase 2 is all about nuclear tugs and fast access to our other planets and other bodies in our solar system. So that is actually hidden in the fairing. In the fairing is our latest design of a nuclear tug. And it should be more than capable of pushing something like 15 tons to Jool and back, or something like 30 tons, depending on the energy trajectory. And we're calling them Goliaths, and we expect them to be able to return back to our Kerbal system to get refuels and get reused. But first, we need to pick up a payload. So we are heading for the MUN. And I had so much fuel left in this stage that even the ascent stage, like the first stage, is still attached to the Hyperion. But I need a fairing. There is no way I can launch this on a 1.875 meter or even a 2.5 meter. It would just look very silly. Maybe not as silly as keeping your booster stage attached to your local, but yeah, this is where we are. Why waste the fuel? And we have entered MUN sphere of influence, and we are going to use this stage to get there, or we used it actually, and oh, that's all very fast. Yeah, taking off from the MUN, you very briefly saw Aldebaran Kerman observing the launch of this very special vehicle. So the team we brought over to the MUN are engineers, they're specialists, and together with the Sandcastle printers we have, they were able to print a launch vehicle. A vehicle especially designed for the atmosphere of the MUN, and in a launch platform that not only light and capable of driving all the way there, carrying all the fuels and the tanks, but also getting a payload where we need it to be, which is in orbit. And the payload is called Valkyrie. This is Project Valkyrie, and Project Valkyrie is aiming to go to Jool and Laythe, and it's going to build a communications network, some scanners, and there's a space plane and a small printer on board to get started. First we need to do an inclination change around the MUN. And you can see that this, because the width of the platform in which we are launching it enables us to pack a ton of Delta V on there. And the payload itself is not really that heavy. It's something in the order of magnitude of 12 tons. But here we are in the dark, so you probably can't see anything. But neither could I when I was doing this maneuver. We are docking the two craft together, the Goliath stage, transfer stage. Giving us about 3,500 meters of Delta V, and the Jool probe. But we still have the almost completely fueled second stage of the Hyperion attached, giving us another, I think something like 2,000, I don't remember, like a lot of fuel. So we're using that, we're getting out of the MUN's sphere of influence into a Kerbal orbit so we can plot our trajectory to the MUN, to Jool. And originally I thought about taking advantage of the Oberth effect and getting very close to Kerbal to get a gravity sling. But then I thought, well, I have so much fuel to spare. Why bother? And you can see the docking in the dark sort of made my solar panels angle very weird. But we'll call it a design strategy. If we pick up a spin, there's always a panel or an axis of panels that's able to face the sun. Yeah, that's why we did this. Yeah, I forgot the staging of the second stage. When it burned out, I manually had to activate the nuclear engines. This is all designed, all working as intended. Blowing up our transfer stage was always part of the plan. But off she is. And the lens platform is still in orbit. Well, why waste a perfectly usable launch platform, especially when you've packed so much fuel on it? And so we're bringing it back to our trusted Mondays. And here we go. And you can already see the shape of the twin craters in the terrain, like the dark sort of banana shape which is in there. Those are the twin craters on the Mun. And we're heading down there. And now you can see the Kerbal constructs at least 100 kilometers. They start to show up. And we are making our descent. And only when we're like 2 kilometers up, the vehicles actually kick in, and you get this big lag right about here. I even cut out a little bit of lag over there. But we're heading down to launch pad 1, which is still the furthest away from the base. You can see we really upgraded our spaceport. We have the habitats, we have the solar arrays, we've got some chemical processes going on, getting the fuel. And as soon as you have sandcastle and you have ore and you have fuel facilities, you're able to do everything on the Mun. You can build spacecraft for free, made out of regolith, and fuel for free. So it's kind of a cheaty way of getting stuff done. But we'll still launch stuff from Kerbin. But I can see why we would do complex launches from the Mun. But don't worry, we'll do stuff from Kerbin. This is the place you probably don't want to be when you're on the launch pad. And this is another Hyperion rocket. This is launching Goliath number 2. Yeah, they're very close together. There were 2 windows. One is for Duna and one is for Jool. So I thought, let's make them count and go for both planets. Obviously, the Jool one is going to take a longer journey. It's going to take, I think, something like 2.5 years to get to Jool, whereas the Duna window is more comfortable. And there's where the boosters go. We're trying to recover them. We're not completely successful. I probably need to add some separators on there to push the boosters just a little bit further away. We're also trying to recover the first stage, but hey, the last one ended up around Mun orbit, which is probably what's going to happen with this one as well. Magnificent, huge fairing. And another Goliath. And the Goliaths look really pretty. And they're powered by liquid hydrogen. And the solar panels will be able to cool the tanks in Kerbin orbit, Duna orbit, no problem. When they go all the way out to Jool, they will lose efficiency. So it's built out of multiple fuel segments. And the idea is that as we go out further, we will stop cooling the lower tanks because they will be empty by then, and thereby saving on power budget. And we should be able to keep the remaining fuel chilled enough so it won't boil off, because that's the main problem with liquid hydrogen. Other than that, second launch of the Hyperion is a great success. And this, I think, the first shot I ever did in orbital view. Here we go, on our way to the Mun. Flipping around it. That is like 6 times accelerated RCS thruster sound. And we can start our insertion burn. Here we go. Another advantage of using your first stage is that you got a huge thrust to waste ratio. But there we go, Goliath 2 is in orbit and he is waiting, or she is waiting, for Project Westmarch, which is the second launch from our Mun colony. Here we go. Slightly different trajectory. I'm not sure why I did that. I think I was trying to go directly for an intercept and then later I made a mistake. But it doesn't matter, they have more than enough fuel to compensate for that. Here we go, and you can see the long bridge that we're building to this small island of regolith out there, where we're going to start working on a mass accelerator. So yeah, we're not sure whether we can complete that, but if we can get some of that fuel and stuff off the Mun surface to Mother orbit, We could build a shipyard in Mun orbit. A mass driver, that was the word I was looking for. But here we go, I skipped a bit in the footage. We are approaching Goliath 2 and going in for docking. Now, this is a Project Westmarch. And Project Westmarch, named of course after Lord of the Rings, consists of a rover called Shadowfax, obviously. And I was about to say this horse, but I mean this rover has a mission to scout out a base location for a manned landing. And we've got 2 Shire modules that they need to set up, which will be sent to the appropriate place once the rover has located that. It's not a science mission, it's not a science rover, but it's quite capable nevertheless. And here we go, staging issues again, but this time we don't have to manually fire up the engine. We need a little bit of fuel from the second stage to get out of Mun orbit. And as we coast toward the ends of the sphere of influence, we set up our burn for Duna. And again, with so much delta V, we don't need to use the orbit effect to get close to Kerbin. We can just get in a high lunar orbit, and it will only take something like 1,000 meters per second to get over to Duna. And of course, we are bringing our trusted launch platform back home. Not because we need it, it's not really that expensive, but mainly because it's fun to do precision landings and sort of see this whole base come out of the darkness, because I miscalculated and it's dark. So let's see if the lights are actually working. This is where we start loading the terrain, which always takes a couple of seconds, even at 4 times speed and acceleration. Yes, the lights are working. I can see some lights at the bottom. Yes, so the mass driver. The mass driver is something you don't want to have close to your base. So we built this bridge out to this pile of regolith where we will be experimenting with mass drivers. Mass drivers are basically an electromagnetic railgun which accelerates large capsules up in the sky and hopefully into orbit. But I still have to dig in the mod to figure that out. I'll ponder that for some time, and I'll see you in the next episode. And I think it's time for Zephyrus to return home. So sorry for the short episode. I promise the next one is going to be a little bit longer. And it's always cool to see the shuttle again. So see you then.